Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today I have a very special guest, the Superintendent of WISD, Dr. Hollingsworth. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, DV. Thanks for having me back on.
Thank you for wanting to come on in here. I reached out to you because it's budget times, and I've actually gotten most of the city governments or government entity, taxing entities in Ellis County or between Midlothian and Waxahachie to come on here and talk about the tax rates, about the budgets, about what you're doing. Of course, I want to remind the viewers, this is the non-political side. When you're talking to the superintendent, you're talking to the budget guy, they're just running these numbers and what they need. So it explains better to you the situation that the school sees itself in, and we can go from there. And so Hollingsworth, you just started off this new school year. You want to talk to the people of Waxahachie, kind of tell the parents how's it going?
Yeah, we're really excited to start a new school year. We're actually in our second full week. We had a short week and then we had a full week last week. Now we're in our second full week of school, and things are going very well. We are, as everybody knows, we're growing in our student enrollment every day, but there's a lot of really good things that are happening in the district. We went through an entire process last year. We determined our vision, and we determined and articulated the core values of our school district, and we've begun to put those into place.
Wow, and that is, I mean, that's the thing about these budgets and stuff. There's things that you need, and then you were saying that the population is growing. We've kind of noticed those houses coming up and up and up. So how many children or how many enrollments did you see? What kind of growth?
So we ended in May. So we ended the school year last year with about 10,180 students. So 10,180. And my number that my data person gave me today was 10,763. And so we've grown almost 600 students since May.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of students. So big hot topic in this county has been, the budgets of the local taxing entities. Obviously, the school district being the largest part of it. People are expressing their views on tax rates, and because things are tough right now. So I wanted to go ahead and ask you, what was the proposed tax rate for this year?
So the tax rate that we have proposed for this school year coming up, the 22-23 school year, is $1.32, $1.3268. And on the maintenance and operations side, which that's 94 cents, it's 0.9429. And on the interest and sinking side, which is that side that pays for debt, building debt, essentially, that's 0.3839. And so that total of $1.32 represents a decrease from last year of 0.0175. So almost a 2-cent decrease. And that is a decrease of 14.61%. So you're down 22 cents since the 2018-2019 school year on the tax rate.
On the tax rate itself.
Right.
And with, as far as the income coming into the school, and you have the finance manager there, there was no new houses, and obviously these houses grew in value, so that you saw growth on that side. There's been a lot of talk about this no new revenue rate. What would that do to your budget if you went for, well, what would be the no new revenue rate if you went with it, and what kind of changes would it have to the budget?
This is Ryan Calden, and Ryan is our Chief Financial Officer.
That's a really good question. So the no new revenue rate, as we go through the truth and taxation form, is about $1.10. And so if we were to adopt the no new revenue rate, what that would ultimately do is, in the short term, it really wouldn't have much of an effect. The way the state funding formulas are in place right now, the state would make up any lack of revenue that we would be missing. And that would be for about 2 years. But then there's a component of the funding formula that expires at the end of the 23-24 school year. And with that, about $35 million would go with that on the expiration of that piece. So we'd be starting the 24-25 school year with about a $35 million budget hole, which, to put that in perspective, our budget in 2017-2018 was about $75 million, which is where it would be with about a $35 million budget decrease from right now. And we had about 2,000 less students at that point. So we'd be going back in terms of the number of staff that we had back in 17-18 with 2,000 additional students to try to educate at that point.
As far as when you were doing these budgets and when you were looking at it and putting up this proposal for the WISD, did you look at did you propose different rates at different cuts and how they would affect the school district? Like, did you give options there, or you guys kind of wrap the budget around the rate that you had said, and that's how you proceeded?
DV, I want to give you an example that really I have shared with lots of folks in the community, and it's one that Mr. Calden provided to our board in one of our board workshops. The way Texas public schools are funded, there are two parts to that funding. One is what is generated on a local level, and then what is provided to the district through state aid. And then there's a small amount that comes from federal funding. But in our case, in Waxahachie, the projection for next school year, we project that our revenue on the maintenance and operations side will increase by 14.1% over the year that we just finished, which sounds great. Our revenue would go up by 14.1%. The state, our projected decrease, because of the increase in revenues on the local level, our projected decrease in state funding is 14.5%. So when we produce more at a local level, the state reduces our state aid actually a little bit more than by the same proportion.
Wow. That seems a little bit unfair, but I did hear that was kind of when I was talking with Dr. Fay at MISD. That was kind of what they were talking about, how that revenue grows and the state takes away. As far as the good things, or let's talk about how is our debt percentage to percentage of our budget, and how's our debt? How are we carrying our debt right now?
Right now, we have about $230 million in outstanding debt principal. That's actually come down from 2019. We had about $245 million in outstanding debt principal. That was with the issuance of bonds to build Simpson Elementary. So we're right now sitting at about the same debt level that we had back in 2016. So for a growing district, we're in really good shape. We're able to issue bonds and pay them off relatively quickly so that we can maintain a pretty level debt stream. In the state of Texas, the legislature has enacted rules that say that our INS rate cannot exceed 50 cents. And so ours right now is about 38.39 cents. So we still have a lot of capacity in there in which we could issue debt if we needed to, if voters approved it, for projects around the district. So we're sitting in really good shape as it relates to our current debt load related to our taxable values and our population.
Excellent. That's always good to hear. Now, what are some of the things, Dr. Hollingsworth, what are some of the things that that you included? What were some of the priorities in this year's budget?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really want to do, as everybody knows, keeping and retaining the very best staff, and attracting those folks to want to come and be a part of WISD. That is something that we have to pay attention to all the time. And in this particular market, teachers are a hot commodity. It's hard to come by teachers these days, and so we want to retain the ones that we have. And so a major priority for us is in creating a great learning environment that reflects our district's values and a place where our teachers want to be. So one of the things that our board did, and I'm so proud of them, is they made a commitment to making sure that on every campus that our teachers have time to work in collaborative teams. And that's beyond their conference period. Teachers by law get a conference period, a planning period, if you will. In Waxahachie, we've made a commitment to making sure that our teachers have time to be able to work with their peers. So, for example, at Waxahachie High School, all of the Algebra 1 teachers are on a collaborative team together. Teachers didn't work this way when we were all in school. Our teachers work together on a team. So they plan their lessons together, they plan their assessments together, and they compare student performance together. And that's why, and it works. When we work together on a team, we find that student performance increases and the effectiveness of teachers increase. Heart doctors do it. Heart doctors work on teams, and they didn't do that 50 years ago, but they do now. And it's because it's a better practice.
Yeah. And so we're adding teachers. I see that you did, and Chris Rourke from the Daily Light wrote a wonderful article on this.
He did a great job.
But I saw that there was an $1,100 pay raise for the teachers, approximately.
Well, that's at a minimum. What that means is there are certain teachers. What we do is we compare how we're doing with the rest of the North Texas region. And so there's actually a study that we use that includes about 50 districts across the Metroplex. And so what we did is we look at where are we comparing favorably. And so we were doing really well with teachers who are at 20 years or 25 years plus experience. And so at some of those areas, those teachers did get a smaller increase because they were already at some of the highest pay in the Metroplex. And there are some other categories of our teachers. Basically, for us, it was on the lower end of experience. Those teachers were far below some of our peers throughout the Metroplex. And so there are some of those areas where they got a greater bump than some others. Okay.
And I'm sure that the teachers are definitely happy on that. You know, things are expensive right now. So you got new teachers coming. Every district, or it's been on the news that there's a major teacher shortage in the U.S. right now. And you're doing some things like the paying and stuff. Is there other things that you're looking at, sir?
Yeah, so we're constantly, you have to look at pay, but you have to also look at the environment that you're creating. One of the core values that we have is that we value honoring and supporting our staff. And I want to share with you that value because I love the way it's written, except that one's in Spanish. There we go. All right. We value a collaborative culture that honors and supports all who positively impact the lives of our students. And so we're constantly looking at ways, and we actually measure ourselves. We've begun a process where we will measure ourselves on how well we honor and support staff. And how do you do that? How do you know whether or not you're doing that well? You ask them. And so we will, on a systematic basis, on a regular basis, we're going to ask our teachers, how well are we doing in living out that particular core value?
Yeah, that's good. One of the things that I had seen, some school districts in Texas are going to 410s. That would probably create a logistical nightmare, but you know, it's something that people are considering now for the teachers, that 4 10-hour shifts and 3-day weekends. That that's just another benefit to get teachers in there. So this question is for you, Mr. Calden.
Yes, sir.
As far as when you were looking at the budget and you were crunching the numbers, were there things that you um, uh, probably cut a little bit or spend a little bit, or decided that we should spend a little bit less on this, or kind of, is there any kind of cuts that you, or slowing in the rate of growth on things that you did this year on the budget?
So we're always looking at our discretionary expenditures. I kind of look at the budget in two different arenas. You got your mandatories and your discretionaries. Mandatories, you got to have staff, you got to have utilities, you got to have insurance, you got to have basic things, supplies to get by so that you can educate students. When we start looking at the discretionary expenditures, now we're talking about maybe it's improvements to buildings. There's a certain level of improvements that are going to happen so that you can continue operating and maintaining that building. But maybe we decide to defer some maintenance down the road. Maybe we push replacing of a roof system from this year to a future year if we're trying to cut back and reallocate our funds in a different method. This year specifically, we had some funds built in last year that we were doing some big one-time purchases. Like we purchased some land last year, and we also replaced a roof system last year. And so those didn't have to happen this year. So we did kind of reallocate our funds a little bit, looking at our priorities and needs and making sure that we are addressing the must-haves first and then the like-to-haves next. And so you'll see some of that, that we're not going to be as adventurous or as forthcoming with some of the roof replacements or HVAC replacements, some campus renovation type things. We're going to make sure we've got our house in order first. We got a sound financial plan, and then we'll address those as additional funds are available.
How is our not that we talked about that, but our reserve fund? Do we have a healthy reserve fund?
We do. We're right about 90 days worth of expenditures in our reserve fund. So it's a very healthy amount. That's what TEA tasks us with keeping at a minimum is 90 days. So we're right at that spot. We feel good where we are. We're definitely not out there trying to hoard a bunch of extra tax dollars that we don't need. So we try to put them into use and into play wherever we can. But we do have a good, healthy fund balance at this point. Yes, sir.
DD, I wanted to point out something in the budget that Mr. Calden and his folks have prepared. It represents a 1.5% increase in expenditures over the 21-22 school year. So, in what we're proposing is a 1.5%. We're going to increase our expenditures by 1.5% overall as a district compared to 21-22, and that's a district that's seeing growth projected to be 9%.
So 1% and then 9% growth.
Yeah. So that should give you an idea of that's a really a very modest increase in expenditures projected, given 8 to 9% student growth.
Yeah, that is when you look at all the students coming in. Mr. Calden, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, if I pronounced that wrong.
No, right on.
So when you were doing the budgets this year and when you were working the numbers this year, obviously there's been a huge spike in inflation. Things are costing more. What are some of the things that you had to come back to Dr. Hollingsworth and say, hey, we're probably going to need more money on this or money on that? What expenditures did you see explode this year?
So this year we really saw a big explosion in fuel. Think about all those buses driving all over the district to transport kids to and from every day. So fuel was a large expenditure increase, and so was maintenance. There's a lot of supply chain issues that we keep running into. Just take a normal repair and replacement of a HVAC unit. You've got your supply chain issues, and you have your parts and their availability. And then on top of that, you get the inflation to go with it as well. So we had to increase the current year budget a good amount for both maintenance and transportation to address both of those. And then we also had to build in some additional funds in the next year's budget, not knowing exactly how long the current significant inflation is going to be around. we put some more money into next year's budget to kind of help soften that blow as well.
Excellent. Well, it looks like you guys took a budget, a thoughtful budget, that you made a thoughtful budget and try to stay fiscally sound. And as always, do you, and this question is for you, Dr. Hollingsworth, do you think that this budget is being a faithful steward to the money of the people of Waxahachie, the parents?
Well, very much so. And I will tell you, I also want to give a lot of credit to our 7 trustees, our board. They put a lot of effort into this process. We had 3 very involved board workshops. They ask a lot of great questions. They help us in the process of determining what our most important priorities are as a district. And that's the way it should be, because they're the elected representatives, the elected officials. And at the end of the day, that's who I work for. And that's, we always want to keep that at the front of mind. But I'm very proud of the effort and the time they put into it.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Calden, I've appreciate you coming on and kind of giving me the strong numbers and the so that the people of Waxahachie can see that, the parents. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mr. Calden.
So Dr. Hollingsworth, we've seen growth. This budget is this budget that you proposed. They're going through it on the political side, and I hope to have one of the board members on. But I wanted to go ahead and kind of go into the other stuff. The last time I talked to you, Marvin Elementary was starting kind of a medical thing. Or Marvin, was it elementary or middle school?
Yeah, Marvin Elementary.
Marvin. Where's it at now?
Yeah, so Marvin Elementary is one of our oldest historic elementaries in Waxahachie ISD, and that is a school that has been underpopulated, and so that's not a good thing. When we're growing the way we are, we can't have buildings that are not being used to the greatest extent possible. And so, what we did, one of our core values is choice. Our families value choice, our kids value choice, and how it is that they learn. For example, we have a wildly popular STEAM elementary school at Wildman. We have a dual language program at Dunaway and at Wedgeworth Elementaries. They're very, very popular. Our health science programs are very popular. So building off that health science, what we have done is we have created the Marvin Biomedical Academy. We are partnering with President Will Turner and his staff at Baylor Scott & White, Waxahachie, and they are helping us to create an elementary school. Our kids at Marvin learn all the same required curriculum that other kids throughout the state of Texas do, but they do so through the lens of the health sciences. And so very innovative, very excited about that. As a result of Marvin, the population of that campus has increased by more than 150 students from throughout the district. So these are families, these are kids who have chosen to bring their kids to Marvin. Now, the kids who are zoned for Marvin are still there, but the kids who chose to come to Marvin have come from throughout our district, and we've been able to increase our enrollment at that campus that has been historically under-enrolled.
Wow. Well, I'm glad to hear that program is going good. I was real happy about stuff like that, any kind of VT and that kind of learning.
So cool.
That's a different.
I'm sorry to interrupt. On our first day of school, DV, President Turner from Baylor Scott & White was there. We had, I think, 15 members of the Baylor Scott & White staff. Many of them were there, and they were wearing their scrubs, et cetera, greeting the kids and welcoming them for their first day of school. It was just so awesome to see that partnership between not only our community, but business and what we're doing in Waxahachie.
Yeah. So I know that you have a robust VT program going on in your district. You want to talk about some developments or stuff that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we're very, very proud of. We have dramatically increased. I cannot give you these numbers off the top of my head, but we have seen great increases in the numbers of kids who are graduating from Waxahachie High School and Global High School with a certification in hand. One of our major goals is we know that not all kids are going to go to college. But even kids who are going to college, many of them benefit from our CTE programs, our career and technical education programs, such as health sciences. So I've got a lot of kids who are getting a certified nurse's assistant certification, phlebotomist certification. We've got tons of different certification, auto technology certifications for cosmetology. We want our kids to be able to leave us and go get good jobs, high paying jobs, or be able to go on to higher education if they choose to do so.
And I'm a big proponent of VT. So because I've seen that you're right. Not everybody's kind of meant for college, and that's not a bad thing. There are other ways. There are other ways to make living a darn good living, and the education system is kind of shifting from the just straight to college to different options for different.
But I want to be real clear. Today's career and technical education, we have both. I mean, you've got kids who are knee deep in our CTE. We call it CTE now. We got kids who are knee deep in our CTE programs and loving it and getting those certifications. And some will go into the world of work, and some of them are going to go on to college and continue those educational pursuits.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Though that means good lives. So, one of the things that I've seen online was the high school. There's always something about the talk about the traffic or how that's working. I've seen a lot of comments there. And then they showed a picture and it was pretty darn crowded.
Yeah.
What can we do to alleviate? What do you see coming in the future? What would you like to see as terms of the high school? I think you have a personal experience with that connection.
Yeah, I do. And I will tell you, one of the things I want everybody to understand is that one of the human beings I love the most, one of my three sons, my youngest son is a freshman at Waxahachie High School. And he has had a fantastic experience. We talk pretty frequently. I ask him questions about what his experiences are, how is the crowding, et cetera. He and I were talking the other day, and he said, well, Dad, it's kind of like driving around Waxahachie. People who've been driving around Waxahachie know to avoid 77. And so, you take Brown, and if you can get on Brown, you're going to be a lot better off than if you stay on 77. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, sometimes just don't go down that hallway. That particular hallway is going to get crowded. And so there are lots of other routes to take. And he's learned what those are. I thought that was a real interesting thing. I do the same thing driving the streets, though. So.
Yeah. But as far as future high school, another high school, or do you see that in the future? What are some of the things that you're going to propose eventually to the board?
Yeah, so we are in the process right now. We have a long-range planning committee that is made up of about 75 patrons throughout the community. So staff members, teachers, we've got parents, business leaders, folks who've had kids who've graduated, folks who have kids who are currently in our schools. And so that group of 75 has been charged with creating a 10 plus year plan or a 17,000 plus student plan. And when I say 17,000, that's because in the 31-32 school year, so about 9 years from now, our projection is to have over 17,000 kids in Waxahachie ISD. That's not something that it's not something that we're, somebody said, well, you sound like you're excited about that. It's a fact. I mean, our data, anybody driving around, you can see we're growing, and that's what we're projected to grow. So it's not something that we're scared of at all. It's just, we got to get a plan. And so those 75 folks are going to help us develop a 10 plus year plan where we know long haul. One of the things I heard from folks about some of the past bonds that have maybe not been successful is they said, we don't want to know how you're going to get over the next hump. Don't tell us the next 2 or 3 year plan. We want to know where we're going long term. And so our community is going to help us determine what that looks like. And the folks on this committee represent that, and they will help us create that. Our plan is to take a 10 plus year, 17,000 plus student plan to our board in December for their consideration. And once they adopt that, then we anticipate that there will probably be, somebody says there's going to be a bond. And I say, yeah, there'll probably be more than one, because on a 10 plus year plan, we would probably break that up into component parts.
Yeah, and the one thing that I've seen in these discussions when it comes to bonds in these schools is people ask for transparency, complete transparency in it. I hope that I know, I've gotten to know you, and I know you're a man of integrity. So that's usually between the bond failing and passing has to do with the transparency of it all. So, one last question before I give you a closing statement to the parents of WISD. I haven't talked to you since the massacre down in Uvalde, and I know that parents, they just started sending their kids for this school year to WISD. What are some of the measures that you have taken? What are some of the trainings that you're looking at, and just kind of tell the parents about the security plan to help prevent something like this, that.
So that particular incident in Uvalde is one that is close to me, because I consider the superintendent there a friend. He and I actually were first-time superintendents together. And when you become a superintendent in Texas, you go, they have all the superintendents in the state of Texas go to a first-time superintendent's academy. And Hal and I were both at that together. And so I got to know him, a fine, fine man. So what I will tell you is, in Waxahachie, I'm very, very proud of our preparedness. And so much of this is work that has nothing to do with me. This is work and a commitment to safety that our board and our school district made several years before I was ever even on the scene. So I really give kudos to a lot of great work that's gone before me. But we're very blessed to have a great relationship with the city of Waxahachie, specifically with the Waxahachie Police Department. And it is a very, very good thing. It's as healthy as I've seen anywhere. And I've been in other districts, and ours is very, very healthy. We have one of our main liaison for us is Lieutenant Josh Oliver. And so having somebody who is high in seniority in the Waxahachie PD is a great benefit to us, because we have easy access to the highest levels of leadership in the police department. That's a huge thing for us. In addition to having 6 school resource officers in our school district. And so that's a great benefit. We plan a lot with them. 2 weeks ago, I was, before school started, 3 weeks ago now, before school began, I was at Coleman Junior High. I went over there to see Mr. East, the principal. I walked out into the hallways, and I had the opportunity to observe in action how it is that our PD was training on site for real potential incidents. And they used a series of scenarios that were real life scenarios that have taken place in schools in the United States, and they were preparing our school resource officers to respond. They did the very same thing the next day with all of our school marshals. Another thing that we have that's a great advantage in Waxahachie is we have an armed school where we don't have an SRO. We have school marshals. Every campus has at least one armed individual at all times during the school day. And so that's a huge benefit for us. We work a lot on safety. We continually revisit that with our folks. We've spent a lot of time working on doors and making sure that all of our doors are secured, not only externally, but internally. And that's one of the things we've had to kind of step up, is making sure that we're getting away from bad habits, old habits of propping doors. So we've had doors that are locked for a long time, but in some cases those doors have been propped, and we've had to get out of that habit because it's just it's too dangerous.
Yeah, one of the after actions talked about the door being open or cracked, and him coming in through there. So that massacre, I know that it's on a lot of parents' minds. When they send their kids off, um, they don't send them to school to be killed.
One of the things that DV that I hear from time to time is people say, "Well, why don't y'all have a your own school police or police force like a lot of other districts do?" And I'm going to tell you that the level of training and the level of professionalism that we get working with officers from the Waxahachie PD and the relationship that we have with them, I would not trade for having my own police force. This is a better way of doing it because we get that instantaneous communication, and it's a seamless process, and it's not something that I would want to change.
Excellent. Well, this is that time in the show where you talk to the parents of Waxahachie that are in your school, and kind of just do a closing statement.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to our parents, and so grateful to you for having us on. I'm grateful to the people of this community. Um, Communities are stronger when we have great schools, and great schools get better when they have great communities behind them. And so that's one of the greatest things. It's one of the things that drew me to want to be a part of this community. It's one of the things that made me want to move my family here and have my youngest son be a part of Waxahachie, and that we've lived that out, and that's been awesome. I will tell you that in the coming months, stay engaged, and by all means, I'm an old government teacher. Register to vote. Be sure that that you're voting and having your voice heard at all times. We're better when we ask great questions, and that's one of the things I love about UDV is you ask good questions, and we appreciate the opportunity to answer them.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to have Chief Goolsby, the Waxahachie PD chief, on next week, and I'm going to be asking him, about the crime in the city, and obviously I'm going to ask about school security and some of the things that Waxahachie PD is doing. But thank you so much, Dr. Hollingsworth. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I hope to have you on again, and we'll talk some more good stuff.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the opportunity.